Hi, my name is Sissy, and I want to welcome you to my show, Getting Healthy with Sis. I am married to my hunky husband, Matt, and together we own a fitness and nutrition coaching studio in Lakeland, Florida called Restoration Fitness and Nutrition. We have 2 little boys, and I've been a nutrition coach for 5 years, helping countless people to revamp their lives and see amazing results implementing one healthy habit at a time. My passion is to help women just like me realize they don't have to be a victim to poor eating habits and poor health. Instead, through proper education and empowerment, they can take control of their health and live the healthiest and happiest life possible. As you tune into my show, I promise you're going to learn new things about your health. You're going to be inspired to take action towards your goals, and you're going to have a ton of fun along the way. Hey guys, I am so honored that you have chosen to hop on today and listen to today's episode as I am interviewing one of my newfound farmer friends, Joshua Young. This is an episode that is filled with such gold and so many nuggets that I think are going to be eye-opening to you and that are going to be life-giving to you and that are just going to open your eyes and broaden your horizon as far as the food that you're putting into your body and why it is so important that you are eating a wide variety of food and that you are choosing the healthiest sources possible to get your food from. And Joshua Young on his farm, he provides that, and he is very like-minded with me and our mission at Restoration as far as helping people to be the healthiest versions of themselves that they can be. And so I know that you're going to enjoy this episode. And as I have just been thinking about my desire and my mission in helping you be connected to him, I have kind of thought back to probably 10 or 15 years ago. I had a mentor of mine recommend that I do this test called the Strengths Finders test. Some of you might have heard of it before, but if you haven't, it's essentially it falls into the category of like a personality profile test, but it evaluates you and you go through this test and it kind of narrows down like what your strengths are as a human being. And so when I did the test, it narrowed down my top 5 strengths. And one of my top 5, if it's not even my number 1 strength, is something called connectivity. And when I was reading about what this strength means, it just was such an aha moment to me. And I'm like, yes, like this is totally who I am and is totally makes sense for why I'm passionate about what I'm passionate about in life. And essentially connectivity it speaks to the part of who I am that loves to connect people with things that I know will help them. And when I began learning that about myself, I'm like, yes, this is so me. Like I've always been that person that's like, hey, I heard this song and it really made me think of you and you should listen to it. Or I read this book and I so thought of you. Or I was reading today and I read this and it made me think of you and I just wanted to send it to you and encourage you. And that's like always been it's just part of who I am. It's like in the core of who I am. And that's part of why I want to share this episode with you today and share this newfound friend that I have with you today, because I truly believe that what he is going to share about today is going to help you. It's going to help you in your health. It's going to help you in your longevity. And so I really want to encourage you to listen up and listen in. If you are particularly in the Lakeland and Tampa area, you're going to be able to benefit from knowing about this man and knowing about his farm and knowing about what he does and how he raises his crop and raises the chickens on his farm and how he raises the produce that he has. But if you're not in this area, I also encourage you to listen up, because this is going to motivate you and encourage you and open your eyes to find someone in your own area that can get these type of resources to you, this type of produce and whatnot. So Listen up. I know that this is going to encourage you and edify you today. That's really why I do it. What I do, why I have this podcast, because I just want to lift you up and help you to become the healthiest version of yourself. So I sincerely hope that you enjoy today's episode. Welcome to episode 24. My name is Sissy. I am the host of the Getting Healthy with Sis show. I'm so thankful that you decided to tune in today. I have a very special guest with me, and I can't wait for us to dive in. So this is a newfound friend of mine. His name is Joshua Young, and he is a farmer out of Thonotosassa. So he's like a neighboring community here to Lakeland. And I'll just kind of give the backstory of how I found him and kind of what the purpose and the plan is for this episode today. So I, have been doing my own research as a nutrition coach and as someone who is very interested in health and all things healthy living and how to, help myself and my family live the healthiest life possible, but also it goes beyond that and helping our members that we have been entrusted with here at Restoration Fitness and Nutrition, helping them to have the resources they need to live the healthiest lives possible. So through some reading that I've recently been doing and some personal research, it has come to my attention how important it is to not only be eating local, not only eating organic produce, which that's something that, has been a norm for me for, I would say, probably the last 15 years. I've always shopped for certified organic produce and organic food, but finding it locally is something that has been really my eyes have really been open to it, and the importance of it. And so anyways, that started a little search, for myself of like, man, I need to find someone around this area that can provide this for me and my family. And then I was talking with a girlfriend, and she was kind of giving me some like, hey, have you checked out this group on Facebook? And have you this woman does eggs, talk to her. She was kind of giving me pointers, pointing me in the right direction for finding resources in this area. And so I actually wound up getting on this. What is that group called?
Florida Farm Finder.
Florida Farm Finder. I wound up getting on this group and searching for a farmer in the area that could potentially provide produce for our gym members. That's local, organic, regeneratively farmed. And Joshua commented on my inquiry, and he was like, "Hey, I'd love to talk." And so we talked, and then actually wound up last week going out to their farm, which is about 45 minutes from here in Lakeland. And it was awesome. It was really amazing. I learned so much from Joshua. I was like, wow, this is quite extensive stuff here. So I wanted to have him on the podcast today so that our friends and our community here in Lakeland can get to know him and get to know what they do at their farm and how it can help you. But also, if you're listening and say you live in a different state or a different community, you're not here local to the Lakeland, Tampa area, there is going to be very important information shared in this podcast that is also for you. So I don't want you to tune us out just because you're not here local to Lakeland. You're going to learn a lot today. So without further ado, let's welcome Joshua and let's get to know him. So tell us a little bit about just your, I know you mentioned to me this is like a fourth generation farm in your family. Kind of tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I grew up on we call it the Young Family Compound, and it was my grandfather bought the land back in the early 60s, and I guess he gave he had 5 kids and gave each kid 5 acres. But I grew up with all my cousins, and my grandfather always had a farm. We grew greens and beans and tomatoes, and it was common. We were all homeschooled, and finishing school, we always had to go pick a bushel of peas or pick up pick collard greens or go shell peas with Granny on the porch, and then we'd always we're canning and preserving, and this just was the life we lived. It's kind of set on the north side of Lake Thonotosassa. It's pretty historical. When you go back and look of the Seminole Indians, it was where their tribes would come together yearly to have their festivals and their spiritual, ceremonies. It's right on Flint Creek where they would make their flint for their arrowheads, and we lived right on Flint Creek. Pretty cool history fact, it was where the first commercial orange grove was planted, was on Lake Thonotosassa. In the early 1800s, we won the Second Indian War, I guess, and put a white settlement on the lake. And the soldiers got fruit in from Cuba or Spain and threw seeds down the ground, and they grew into these big old trees. And the colonel, I think it's Colonel Mabry, actually they still have an estate there on the lake. Wow. And they told the general, we have a great money-making opportunity here in Florida. So they went around the whole state of Florida and got all the citron and citrus from the woods, and they came back and planted it on Lake Thonotosassa. And I believe some of those genetics still live in our woods, and I eat on them, on a yearly basis. Wow. So it's pretty amazing.
Wow, that's so cool.
Yeah,
that's amazing.
Yeah.
So this is definitely, it's enriched deep in your family. You were raised, like what you said, like picking collard greens and doing,
Yeah, we always had cows or goats or chickens and pigs, and we pretty much ate off the land as much as possible. My parents were unlike other parents where they got Captain Crunch and processed cereals. We made our own oatmeal or our own yogurt, and I think growing up I always thought it was a bad thing, and I wanted to go down to my cousin's house or wherever and get that sugary snacks. Right. But I'm thankful I was raised the way I was raised now. Right. It certainly has a lot to do with the health of our family. And we have a big family. There's 9 brothers and sisters that we have. My parents had 3 originally, and then through a Christian organization, we started fostering kids, and through that, we adopted several different sets of 3 families, and so we're a big farming family, I guess, if you will. Currently, it's my mom and my dad, my wife, and then my son and my daughter also help us on the farm, and it's a good place to raise a family and to be raised.
Right. So when I drove up last week, you gave me the address, I drove up, and I drove to a house, which was your parents' house. Yes. And then there were like chickens. Mm-hmm. You were out there working with the chickens, and then there was, I guess the lines of crops, right?
Yes.
Right?
Correct.
And then he kind of took me around. I got to see a lot of stuff. So kind of tell me about y'all's farm and, what you guys grow. I definitely want to hit on, giving understanding to our listeners today about what makes produce organically grown, what makes it regeneratively grown, why are those things important?
Yeah, sure. So we are raising 150 chickens right now. They're meat chickens, and then we also have egg chickens as well. We usually produce or have partners locally that we do between 50 and 60 dozen eggs a week. Our farm is planted as a rotational planting, companion planting, CSA model, which means community supported agriculture, CSA. Okay. And the idea is that we plant enough each week that we will need to harvest for the markets or what we already have, sold. So that way we don't have a bunch extra that needs to go to the wholesale market. We're trying to only produce enough that our customers have what they need. First it started, when we first started, we just wanted to grow food for our family, and when we had enough, we started sharing with our neighbors, and then from there, we started developing markets first, and then growing. We can pretty much grow anything. Like, what do you want to eat? And so, people said, well, I really want to eat collard greens, or I want to eat Swiss chard. I want to eat these herbs. And so, we started a plan to start incorporating that into our planting guide. We believe in diversity by design. I think that's God's way. The more diverse that we can plant the farm, the less problems we have overall, because it turns out plants are amazing creation, and they talk to each other through phenolic compounds, through aromatic compounds, through their root systems, through the mycorrhiza fungi that attaches from one species to another species, and then they end up sharing resources. If there's an attack on one side of the farm from an insect or a pressure, they're able to send a signal of distress to the other parts of the garden, and then they're able to respond to that through the underground network that we don't see with our eyes, but it exists, to send the extra resources for that plant to strengthen its own immune system and therefore defend an attack. So a lot of commercial farming, which I grew up around, is monoculture, and they don't have...
Tell us what that means.
Monoculture means you have one crop planted at the same time, and say it's in a 40-acre tract, and you plant just squash or just strawberries. That, if you look at the forest, for instance, and you look and it's beautiful and it's green and it's healthy, and you look at and see the diversity, you got the trees and you got the bushes and the understory and you got the blueberries, and
it's all growing together.
All growing together and supporting a system that an ecosystem that was designed by God. Yeah. And so we're trying to mimic nature in that regard.
Cool. That's really cool.
So
just to pause, what you were just talking about like 2 minutes ago was when you started telling me about that while we were on the farm, I was like, oh my gosh, that's so interesting how the plants, when they are growing together. So when I went, he was like, all right, this row has got sunflowers, this row's collards, this is Swiss chard, this is tomatoes, and it was all together, and you were talking to me about what you were just saying, which I find so interesting, that the plants are intelligent. They are so intelligent when they're given the opportunity to do what they are intelligently designed to do.
Yes.
They can defend themselves, and that is just so interesting. Share more with us.
Well,
about
when we
that.
plant cover crops, we try to include 5 species. We include legumes, which are like peas and beans, and those are nitrogen-fixing plants. So they can take nitrogen out of the air and fix it to the roots, and then release it like a time-release fertilizer. So if you incorporate legumes in with your planting of, we plant cereals like oats or rye. We plant chinopods, which is like your beets. We plant grasses like your corn or your sorghum. And I'm missing one, but when you plant those 5, there's a synergistic effect, and underground it's like a puzzle piece coming together, interwoven, perfect system of community, if you will. And I think that's a lot about what we're talking about here is how do we, as a community, come together and support each other, with our own health, on our own health journey, which is very holistic in itself.
Right, for sure. So one of the things that we were talking about last week when we met was that I thought was very interesting is that you said plants, and I would love for you to kind of educate us on this, but plants that need pesticides or need medicine are actually sick plants. But plants that are healthy and that they're living the way that they were meant to live and creatively designed to live, that they have a strong immune system, if you will, and can fight off infection, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so talk to us about that.
Well, I think God created the perfect self-healing system. And if you cut your hand, it just heals. There's nothing you have to do about it. It just heals. And that's just one example.
Right.
And plants have that same ability. I kind of talked to you about plants harvest sunlight through photosynthesis. And it's a very complex process, but sometimes complex processes have very simple solutions. We know how the plants photosynthesize, and why are they photosynthesizing is they're creating sugars every day, and sugars, lipids, fats, and oils, and proteins. And then when they're able to photosynthesize properly, there's plenty of resources to to heal. Maybe it's too much sun scald, and they send, at the end of the day, they've done photosynthesizing, they've created all this sugar. Now, at the end of the day, what are they going to do with it? They send whatever resources is necessary to heal themselves on the top side, and then whatever's left that goes down down through the root system and into the soil, and that feeds a hungry microbial, bacteria, and fungi community, and in nature, everything is an exchange. So they're creating these sugars and fats and oils, and they put it down in the root system so that they can get the calcium and the iron and the manganese and the copper and all the micronutrients that they need to be healthy. So the immune system of the plant is actually in the soil. So we always say in our business that that soil health is the key to our health. But plants are actually responsible for a healthy soil. So as we grow healthy plants and we feed, they make it healthy, and the soil grows. And every year that we're able to do this, the more plant species we can grow, the more crops we can grow, the healthier the soil becomes, and therefore the healthier the plants become. And just like humans, if you're getting attacked with a bacterial infection, chances are either there is there's a toxin in your system that's keeping your immune system from functioning properly, or B, you're missing a micronutrient that's necessary for your health, or C, which is more than most likely, is you're consuming something that is pushing that micronutrient that you need out. For instance, you're consuming too much calcium, so therefore you don't have enough of the micronutrients necessary for your body to respond. Healthy plant does not attract insects or disease because they do not have the ability to, insects do not have the ability like we do with the complex systems to digest high-level proteins. They don't have a pancreas, for instance. They don't have a liver, for instance. And so if a plant is attracting insects, it's actually putting out a signal of distress, which is calling that pest to it in order for it to be able to create those secondary metabolites and compounds to heal the whole system.
Wow, that's so interesting. So talk to us, relate that back to what we've got in conventional mass farming in our country, where it seems like they all need to be sprayed with all these pesticides, insecticides, all that. What's going on there? Why does it need that versus what you're doing does not?
Well, I think if we step back 100 years, we learned that great-granddaddy, even though the science hadn't caught up with where they were, there was just a natural understanding of how plants work and plant physiology works. The big change in my mind was World War II. We win the war, and we win armament factories worth of ammonium nitrate, which is a synthetic nitrogen. We created, really wise men created that be able to pull nitrogen out of the air, but it created a bomb-making material. Well, after the war, we didn't really have a purpose for this solution, and so that began the green revolution, if you will, or the chemical revolution, and we took this ammonium nitrate back to our land-grant universities and said, hey, we've got this synthetic nitrogen that's going to grow more corn, and we're going to have a lot more people, so you guys need to check it out. And it was during that time that a lot of the pests and disease that we fight today were created. If you go back in the literature, they didn't exist in the literature before this time. And ammonium nitrate, in the synthetic version, it actually kills biology. And so as you put it on the corn to grow more corn, you actually damage the ecosystem, and then therefore, as a response to that, the insect shows up.
Show up.
And then we grabbed a pesticide that maybe we used also in the war and brought it back, and we started spraying it on the crop. And said, don't worry about those pests, we've got something for that. Yeah. Well, since then, there's been every year more and more nitrogen, more and more pesticides, more and more disease, and there's really been no end in sight. So we've kind of created, a lot of times when I have a problem, I've had a hand in creating it, and we have to be humble enough to realize that maybe it's by ignorance or maybe lack of understanding of the system. But I think sometimes we've got to take a big step back in order to move forward. And fortunately, the science is in today to where we have that understanding of what nutrient density is, what a healthy plant looks like, that maybe they didn't have before. But going back to using manures and compost and things that nature uses is a better system than what we've created over the last 85 years.
Right. That's so interesting. But thank you for giving us that history. That's like so rich, and we hear all the time, like, pesticides, they're bad, but understanding the history of how we got to where we are with using them on our plants that we're consuming is very interesting.
And now the commercial system is really about, and farmers need to make money in order to grow more food, but it's graduated to where that's really the only focus. And so we begin the conventional system by fumigating. That's like chemotherapy for the soil. So we kill everything, and then we try over the next 30 to 90 to 120 days to try to keep that system together with pesticides. I mean, a lot of times we call it preventative maintenance, and we didn't even have a sick plant. But every 3 days we would put a pesticide on, say, strawberries. We put a fungicide and insecticide on there just in case we might get an attack. Sometimes we take an aspirin every day so we don't have a heart attack. And the problem with that is, and I'm sure there's good reasons for it, but at some point the system collapses and the immune system collapses, and it usually doesn't end well.
Wow, that's so interesting. So as I was, over the last several months and weeks as I've been doing research on this, one of the things that I came across was that the World Health Organization has actually explicitly stated that glyphosate, which is the key ingredient in the most widely used pesticide Roundup, damages our DNA and it probably causes cancer. Like, they have admitted that, and that's on our conventionally grown crops. Am I correct?
It's on the conventionally grown corn, on wheat,
which is in so much
soy,
right? Which is processed down to be in so much of the food that we consume when it's processed.
Yeah, they say glyphosate's in your beer and your ice cream and your milk. There's been so much used that it's in the rainwater. So sometimes it's hard to get away from. But the original patent on glyphosate was as a biocide, meaning it kills all life. And so it's taken in through the leaf of the plant and then down into the soil, and where it's constant. And I was taught that once it's in the soil, it's inactive and doesn't cause a problem. But that science has been proven to be not true. That if you have a good organic matter soil, does that make sense to you? Organic matter. So organic matter is able to bind those the glyphosate and keep it away. But at some point in Florida, we have very sandy soils, and so when a soil drops below a certain organic matter, then there is no half-life for glyphosate, the way I understand it, and so it's continually working and continually killing biology, which we stated earlier is key to having a healthy plant. It's sprayed in the middles of our fruit and vegetable fields, maybe not on there, but sometimes it's hard to say whether it gets drift on a plant or not. And it's very concerning, I think, that our entire ecosystem has been sprayed with a biocide, which we are soil, if you will, and so a lot of the health issues really, especially the chronic disease issues, started in 1995. It could be traced back to that. A lot of the autism has been traced back to about that time when it really took off, and that's about the time that the GMO crops were approved to be used in the United States. So I don't think it's a coincidence. And if I had my choice, we wouldn't use it in this country. And there's a lot of countries that's already banned it. And in fact, there's a Senate bill right now trying to preserve the rights of Floridian farmers to use glyphosate, and we should all look into that and speak out against it, because it's not good for our community, our soils, or our health.
Wow, that's amazing. So one of the things that we were discussing when I was with you last week is, you were telling me, you're saying, Sissy, the nutritional value of the plant is found in the soil. How healthy the soil is tells us how healthy the plant is going to be for the human body to consume, correct?
In some regards, yes.
Talk to us about that.
Well, a plant goes through, my mentor is an Amish man, John Kempf. He talks about the plant health pyramid, and he talks about, photosynthesis being primary. And when we can create enough photosynthesis and we have enough energy, then the plant starts creating protein, and so we call that protein synthesis. And then and once we start creating proteins, there's a lot of talk about peptides. We complete our amino acids and we get peptides, then we get proteins. And then the plant starts creating lipids, or fats and oils. We talk about the fats of the land, and that's what is really referenced there. And then it gets to a point where your plant is feeding off of plant secondary metabolites. So plant secondary metabolites is when a plant is able to develop those higher level compounds, and then with that, putting that back into the soil, as we talked about every night, whatever is created goes back into the soil. It allows the soil, if we all went away and we became extinct, the soil is naturally going to fix itself. It naturally goes back to a perfect pH. The communities return. And so when we're able to grow plants that are that healthy and have a symbiotic relationship with the soil and giving it everything it needs, one of my other mentors, Lane Ingham, talks about cakes and cookies. So if you were going to go to the kitchen and you were going to create something with protein, fat, and oil, what would you be creating? Like a cake or a cookie, right? And the plant actually is able to create the perfect iron cookie if it needs iron, and put it out through its roots, and then the bacteria that's responsible for getting iron eats that sugar cookie and goes out and gets iron and then gives it to the plant. Which is where glyphosate is so rough. There's certain amino acids that are blocked specifically, and so that plant doesn't get exactly what it needs to be healthy. I don't know if I got off base there from where your question was.
Well, just that the health of we want healthy plants.
Yes.
They come from healthy soil.
Right. And healthy soil is built by growing healthy plants.
Exactly. And when we eat healthy plants, we get the benefit of that healthy plant.
Yeah.
Correct?
Yeah. When we talk about the
plant
secondary metabolites, the micronutrients is one thing, but then when it gets to that higher level where food could be considered medicine, now the plant is creating lycopene. It's creating antioxidants, polyphenols, the things, the aromatic compounds that you smell in lavender or coffee. Those things go right to the healing of our system. Sometimes it's not drinking the coffee. Sometimes it's just smelling the coffee that gets you going in the morning. Eating the dark fruit like a blueberry is full of antioxidants, but those aren't. Every blueberry is not created equally. Every carrot's not created equally. The USDA has come up with standard nutritional guidelines. When you turn over a bag of carrots, you're going to get this much vitamin A, this much vitamin C.
Sure.
But it's being proven now that one carrot may have 20% of that nutritional value, and one of them may have 80% of that nutritional value, and one of them may have zero nutritional value. Plants that were harvested today, like if I could take you out to my farm like I did, and I fed you some broccoli and some cauliflower and some chard, like those, you can feel it when you eat it. Like, man, like it's an immediate jolt to the system.
Yes.
every day that a plant is harvested and then goes through the system, if you will. I think on your research, 1,500 miles typically.
And let's just pause right there. So on average, we're seeing that when a plant is picked, that it has to travel an average of 1,500 miles before it gets to our grocery store where we can purchase it. And in that time, it can lose up to 77% of its vitamin C content, which is an essential antioxidant for our bodies. It informs our cells on how to, heal the body. And so, when I read that, I'm like, this is not okay. Yeah. It almost shows you that, like, it's almost like, does this mean I will not shop at my grocery store? No, it doesn't. Like, I have to in some ways, but it just spoke to me about, like, hey, it's kind of like not an option to ignore, like, finding food that's local. Because talk to us a little bit about, like, I think you told me as soon as you pick that food off of the vine, it immediately begins to lose that nutrient value. Is that correct?
Correct. And the first thing it loses, it's almost in reverse of what I talked about earlier, but it starts breaking, the proteins start breaking down, and those secondary healing compounds start going away. So you still may get some nutrition out of it, but you're not getting the full force of nature and the full healing compounds that it was meant to be.
Which is like, wow, okay, let's just pause there. Like, we have, we are like the wealthiest nation on the earth, but we are also the sickest.
Correct.
Like, so what's going on with our food that even when we think I'm eating good food for myself, wow, it's and you said to me, now studies show that to get the same nutrients from one apple, however many years ago, how many years ago was it?
Yeah, it was just when our
grandparents, they could eat one apple and get the same amount of nutrients but we need to eat 4 of them to get the same amount of nutrition from it. That's just like amazing.
And what is that going to mean for our children and our grandchildren? They're going to have to eat a bushel of apples.
Right.
And we're learning that, it really depends on which farm that apple was picked on, So it is important to eat local, but it's also important to eat local from a local farm that your farmer and the practices he's using and can show you or even send it off to a lab and say, hey, my oranges are 8 times more nutrient dense than these oranges.
Wow. That's so cool.
Yeah, it is. And I'll just go ahead and do a little plug for my friend Dan Kittredge. He runs the Bionutrient Food Association, and they're working currently on a spectrometer that hopefully one day will be attached to our cell phones, that you can actually scan your vegetable and get a rating saying this carrot is 80, an 80. This one's a 95. This one is no good at all. And I would say in the next 2 to 3 years, you're going to see that real life.
Wow.
They've already on version 2 of it, so some of the farmers are now using it in their farm as growing as a technique to find out where they're at and how they can grow better, and it's real quickly, with technology and AI, and you'll see that in our lifetime for sure.
Wow.
So that's going to change the game for everyone in farming.
Wow, that's amazing. So tell us, like, why can we trust you and the practices on your farm? Like, what are you doing to ensure that, like, your food that you're growing is the top notch with the nutritional value, and that there's not added poisons on that food?
Yeah, so we start off we don't do a lot of tilling. Where conventional farming is very tilled, and the reason we don't is because we want to preserve that biology and the growth that we had last year. We want to continue its growth. Now sometimes we have to do some light tilling. So tilling breaks up the soil. It's called the soil food web. And it's a complex, we talked about bacteria and fungi, but there's also microarthropods and nematodes and earthworms, and you have all this soil food web, if you will, that is working to grow its own community. So when you break it all up, it will rebuild. It disturbs it. And it will sometimes, if it has all the pieces, can rebuild very quickly. If you're taking over poor soil, You don't really want to eat the vegetables necessarily off the poor soil. You want to find out what that soil is made of. And so we take soil tests and we send it off to a lab, and we find out.
You do this on your farm?
We do.
Okay.
Yeah, so we find out the percentage of calcium and magnesium, and we're looking for a specific balance in that. We're looking at for 68% magnesium, calcium, 12% magnesium, 3 to 5% potassium, less than 1% sodium, and then we're looking for 5% organic matter, which in Florida you have to build to unless you just are blessed, taking over an old lake bed or something. So there can be some heavier soils. The soil was like Rocky Road ice cream when God made it. It's like not all soils were created the same, but just like every person can be healed, every soil can be healed. It was kind of my revelation as the chemical guy. I went off to a conference from Graham Sade out of Australia, who taught that soil health is the key to plant, animal, and human health. And every soil, no matter where it's at, can be taken to a very high level.
Wow.
The soil didn't get there in one day, so you're not going to get it out in one day. So it is a process.
Just like humans.
Just like humans,
Yeah.
if they come in day one for workout and they're expecting results on day two, they're going to be super sore and super disappointed.
Yes.
But if they'll keep that consistency up and they'll continue to grow and they'll continue to eat healthy and make life changes in 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, 3 years, where will they be?
Right.
And that's the same with soil.
Right.
And
That's
so
so cool.
we're 7 years into the healing of our soil. And it does start with a soil test, just like, I would assume for you guys it would be a blood test, a hair test, and a urine test to find out where you're at. Where is your hormones at? Where's your nutrition at? For me personally, in my healing journey, when I figured this out and went to Graham and he took a hair test and showed me where my deficiencies is, I went right home and took a soil test, and they matched. I didn't have any manganese. I didn't have any boron. My calcium was too high. My phosphorus was low. And it was literally the same. So we are what we eat, and more importantly, we are what we eat, which is soil, which is not what it used to be. It's degraded.
Yes. So the conventional farming, they're doing tilling to the soil, which can damage the ecosystem, which damages the nutrient quality that the plants are able to get. Correct?
Yes.
What are you guys doing that's different than that? How are y'all taking care? You said you're doing soil testing.
Soil
on your
testing,
farm.
and then we're amending with the correct amendment based on the deficiency.
Giving it the vitamins.
A lot of times in conventional, it's more of a shotgun approach. This is more of a rifle approach, where we don't have enough manganese, so we're adding manganese.
Okay.
We don't have enough boron, and boron leaches quickly in Florida soils, so we're giving it a consistent supply of boron, which is the enzyme cofactor to bring calcium into the plant.
Okay.
And with that, I don't fertilize near as much as a conventional farm. I mean, they push hard and fast. It's like when they grow animals, they're giving them 5 hormone shots, 5 steroid shots, and therefore they have to give them 5 antibiotic shots.
Sure.
And because if not, then the weak ones will get sick, and then the herd will die. It's very similar comparison to the plant world.
Right.
So we add, we don't have enough organic matter. We are growing in a Florida sand, so we add good compost. And there are varying degrees of compost, but I think any compost is better than no compost. We sometimes use the animal manures that we're creating on the farm with the chickens, and or adding an organic source of nitrogen, if you will. Fish is something we use. I say my plants they're expensive. They like to eat fish, and they like to eat crab, and they like to eat shrimp. So we're using all those organic materials in our program in order to get the soil into a very healthy state, and then we get ready to plant our seed. And when we plant our seed, we inoculate the seed with healthy bacteria and mycorrhiza fungi. Mycorrhiza fungi is that underground network that we talked about, like the underground internet, if you will, so that if a plant, if we didn't get everything that plant needs, it has a system to where it can tap into and say, hey, I don't have enough manganese here in this microclimate, but if it's tapped into the network, it can go out into the forest and bring that nutrient up to that plant. So we, and then immediately the soil recognizes that plant as its own, and then the fungi are kind of really in charge from there on.
Wow.
Out.
Wow.
So that's something that we're doing that, there may be conventional farms that are using some of these techniques, but even when, we were in the conventional system, we always had our hand on the medicine to treat the symptoms, and never looking at what's causing the problem. And
why are these plants getting sick?
Why are they getting sick? It was just, give me a medicine, and if that don't work, give me a harder medicine. If that don't work, give me a harder medicine.
Wow.
Until, the plant collapses, or, sometimes they would get better temporarily, but sometimes using the medicine, just like in human nutrition, I got some friends now that are on certain medicines, but it's causing mayhem with the rest of their system. So they might be treating this symptom, but you're creating another symptom over here that you're going to have to deal with. And the problem is you don't have enough magnesium in your diet. You need to get an Epsom salt bath.
Yeah.
You need to get on a B vitamin, or you need to, go through a cleanse, if you will. Everything's backed up.
Or eat more nutrient dense food.
Nutrient-dense, biologically active food. I mean, they're showing now that the biology. So it's not only that I'm growing in a healthy soil, but there's something called independent fungi that are in the plant leaves. So when you eat those greens that you brought in your box, that biology is now transferring into your DNA and repairing damaged cells and structures immediately upon consuming it. So then that's the next level that, I don't even think we're there yet. We haven't arrived. This is a process, but I think there's just the tip of the iceberg. Now that there's an understanding that this is even a possibility, that food can be medicine, we can get everyone growing their own food in their backyard and make this common knowledge instead of this, this crazy idea. I think that's where this is going, and really soon.
Right. You said to me last week, you said, you were like, I want to help everyone learn how to grow something in their yard, because something picked fresh is like so much more nutrient dense. Is that correct? Than something you bought at the store or whatever?
It's a vibrational pattern. Everything we're talking about, as manganese, manganese vibrates a certain frequency, if you will.
Wow.
So when you're eating a living plant, it goes immediately to changing that frequency of your body to a system of health. It's either regenerating or degenerating. There's no sitting in the middle. Now, God said, I want you hot or cold, or I'm going to spew you out of my mouth.
Right.
You can't just stay in one place. Either you're getting healthier or you're getting non-healthier based on what you're consuming, and not just in your mouth. Our system is a very holistic system. So you have to talk about the spiritual health of a person, the mental health of a person, and then the physical health of a person. And that's very similar in soils. You got the chemistry part of it, which we've talked about, the manganese, the calcium, the biology part of it. But when you put those two together, it actually changes the physical. And so when we can start spiritually and renew our mind, that changes our
it informs the rest of our body physically
of what to do.
Right.
And then and then you're going to the store and you're not just buying the same thing every week. We're getting jelly sandwiches and chips and cookies and sending our kids off with basically no nutrition to try to make it through the day, and we wonder why our kids are acting out and having problems. Well, they're starving for nutrition, and they're trying to tell you, but they don't know how to tell you, because that communication system that we once had is broken. If they could tell you what the real feeling is, like, I need some nutrition in my body. And so if we could change the food in the schools to locally grown, or getting them growing their own food for the cafeteria instead of turning it over to this worldwide corporation on 28 cents a meal to try to feed our kids. I think there's a lot of places that if we start here, then there's a lot of areas of our life that are going to be affected positively by getting good nutrition and biology into a proper state. And then you'll watch your physical body change, your mental health change, even your spiritual health. I mean, if you go back to every food is medicine, or every green herb in Genesis is medicine for your body. The leaves of the tree are for the healing of the nations in Revelations, where it's talking about the tree of life. But I think that's a representation of today. Like a lot of these plant secondary metabolites and compounds are in the leaf. They certainly can be transferred to the fruit, but the more leafy greens, the more magnesium, the more iron, the more manganese that we're going to be getting, which are key metabolites or enzyme cofactors in order to unlock these secret gates of health for us.
Right. It's so cool. Picture this with me. You're sitting down to make your grocery list for the week, and you're stumped on what healthy items you can add to your list that are going to fuel your body while helping you to reach your fat loss and body composition goals. You want some easy go-to items to stock in your fridge and pantry that you know will increase your health while decreasing your waistline. Well, I have the solution for you. I have created 3, that's right, I said it, 3 amazing shopping guides for Aldi, Sam's Club, and Costco. So if you're someone who frequents these grocery stores, you can download these lists for free, and I promise they'll guide your shopping experience in a spectacular way. So if you're ready to download these lists now, you can go to gettinghealthywithsis.restorationfitnesslkld.com. I'll say it again so you can write it down. That's gettinghealthywithsis.restorationfitnesslkld.com. So last week when we were on your farm, I think you handed me a tomato and you said, you're like, taste that. And you said, the flavor of the plant you eat, and it lets you know how healthy the soil was that it was grown in, and how when I brought those tomatoes home and I ate them, I was like, these are the best cherry tomatoes. Like I buy those. I buy them organic at the store,
Sure.
But they really did have a lot of flavor in them. Yeah. And my husband doesn't like tomatoes, so I couldn't offer them to him. But I'm like, man, if you like tomatoes, you would really like these. But talk to us a little bit about that, about how when we're tasting our produce, if we feel like it has no taste, have you ever had a strawberry from the store or whatever, and you're like, this just does not taste good. And then sometimes you have them and you're like, wow. Yeah. This is amazing. Talk to us about how the health of the soil informs the taste of the plant that we're eating.
The flavonoids of the plant, which is one of those secondary compounds that we talked about, is created in the soil. And I think God gave us our taste buds and our smell to know what's healthy.
That's true. So true.
So many times in conventional agriculture, and it's just the problem with the system. I said 7 years ago, we have to change the system because we can't fix the system.
Right.
But many times the farmers are forced into an economic scenario where they're picking the fruit green, even tomatoes. A lot of the tomatoes you pick at the store are picked green, and then they're actually gassed with a fumigant that's been banned all over the world called methyl bromide in order to turn it red. It creates ethylene, which is a ripening, hormone or something, ethylene, and it turns it red. So
can we just pause there? That is so scary to me.
Yes.
Do you know what I'm saying? I know that these things are common knowledge to you, but that is so. What are those chemicals that are doing that to that plant that then we are ingesting and we don't even know it? What are they? I mean, it's bad for us, correct?
It's not great.
Yeah.
No, it's and most importantly, you think you need the lycopene from a tomato. I heard your trainer say something, and it was basically what makes a red tomato red, and those compounds are the healing compounds we're talking about.
Right.
For strawberries, we ship them to New York and to Chicago and to Canada, and so they're picked 3 or 4 days green. The strawberries that you got from me the other day were brought all the way, when they say vine ripe, that's when those secondary, the plant has time to finish.
Yes.
And so when you're harvesting it prematurely, you may be getting some nutrition, but you're not getting the healing compounds that you need.
That you could be getting if it was really fresh.
And then that's where the flavor. Now there's been a lot of scientific approaches to try to make them taste good anyway, make them more sweet, some breeding things that they can do. But ultimately, when a strawberry is ripe and you eat it fresh from the farm, that's when it's the highest nutritional value, and you're going to get the healing compounds of a strawberry, of a blueberry. And yes, the flavonoids and all that is created by creating a healthy environment. A lot of times people think, I can't be successful in Florida, but they're treating their soil like dirt, and they're not tending to their soil. They're not connecting their soil. Have you saw me the other day, I walk around with no shoes on so I can connect with the soil. When a plant's not feeling well, I ask it, like, what's going on with you today? Like, what are we missing here? And I sit there and I be with I'm with the
so cool.
I become one with the plant to try to say, where am I messing this system up? How can I do better? And most of the time, we'll get a revelation of, like I said before, I love my go-to is to, if we're creating sugars and something has stopped that process, we'll give it a little sugar. So I give it a little molasses, I give it some Epsom salt, some magnesium sulfate, and usually the plant will kick that photosynthesis back off, and within 2 or 3 days, the plant starts feeling better. If I know I've missed an application, I need some boron, or I need some manganese, some micronutrients. When we spray, we use a synergistic stack, so we'll put some biology. We'll put a food source for that biology, which is usually a sugar of some kind, a complex sugar, not a simple sugar. And then we'll put the right nutrients. It kind of comes to, that kind of brings us to more testing. So when I'm really not sure, then I use what's called sap analysis. So I'll take the oldest and the youngest leaf of the bush, and I'll collect a bag of each leaf, and I'll send it off to the lab, and they'll squeeze the juice and give me a nutritional profile of the oldest and the youngest. And certain minerals like nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium, they can be used to build the oldest leaf, and then when the plant is creating a new leaf, a baby leaf, and there's not enough for everyone to go around, it's the grandpa leaves that's going to take what it can and deconstruct itself to give that new leaf, and you see this young, healthy green leaf coming, but the old leaf is starting to die, and that's a telltale sign that there's something missing in the system. So that's usually a really easy fix, because there's only certain nutrients that can do that.
Right.
Calcium, once it creates the calcium pectate layer of the leaf, it's not going to extract calcium and put it in there. So it wouldn't be a so it makes it real easy to diagnose, and if you don't know, then you need to test, and we do that. So sap analysis is one of the newest tools out there for farmers. Using a refractometer, if you squeeze the juice off a leaf onto a refractometer, it gives you a Brix reading, or a sugar reading, and once a sugar reading gets above 12, then insects won't attack. If it gets above 15 or 16, it's a truly healthy plant. If it's around a 4 or 5, you're going to have all kind of problems.
Got it.
So
Okay.
it's allowing that plant to reach its potential by not getting in its way, but by being there as in a supportive role to help it to grow through some of those issues of unhealthy soil or incomplete nutrition profiles. But usually complex problems, there's usually simple solutions. Let's say your engine's not firing right, and it's this engine, and you don't know, but if you change the spark plug, it fixes the problem. So that complex motor, sometimes it's very simple solutions. Change your plugs and wires. And it's very similar in nature system.
Right. Yeah, that's so cool. I love learning about all of this and hearing your expertise on it. It's so informative. It's fascinating. So tell us, tell our listeners, why should we consider getting our produce from you versus at Publix?
So our food is grown with everything we've talked about in mind.
Yep.
It's fresh from the farm. Whatever we don't sell in a certain week, we go to the next level of preserving that nutritional value. So we can it, make pickled vegetables or pickled beets. We make jams and jellies. We have a freeze dryer, so we'll freeze dry our onion tops and create an onion powder. We talked about flash freezing. So if you know you get your box of food and you know you're not going to be able to eat it all this week, then the best way to preserve it is to go ahead and freeze it now, and that will preserve most of the nutritional value of the food and kind of hold it in that state. So those are good options as far as of keeping the nutritional integrity of the plant. So every week we get fresh strawberries, fresh blueberries, fresh lettuce, fresh chard, fresh tomatoes. And so when you're eating it, you know that it's at its highest point. Now, me as a farmer, if I have if we got everything right, certainly not, And if I have an insect or a disease problem show up, then that's insect and disease food. That's not people food. So I don't offer it to you that week. In a conventional system, it's sprayed with all kind of fungicides, insecticides to mask those symptoms so that you buy it and then it goes into your refrigerator. And I think we've all had strawberries, for instance, where they look fine in the store, then you put them in your fridge, and 2 days later they're full of gray mold.
Right.
And that disease was already there before you bought them. You just couldn't see them with your eyes. Right. And so typically a healthy plant doesn't rot. It dehydrates. So you can set it on the counter, and it doesn't typically like the mold doesn't typically get it first. I mean, a healthy plant should have all the structural integrity and nutritional value, and you shouldn't.
Just loses the water.
It's going to last a lot longer in your refrigerator than a store-bought vegetable typically.
That's so interesting, huh? Tell me this. This is interesting. I bought a bag of organic pears at Aldi probably 6 months ago, and those things were hard when I got them, and they never ripened. They never got soft, and they were like I don't know how to say it, Diaju or whatever pears that get soft. It was the wildest thing. They never. And I'm like, are these even real? Like, shouldn't these be ripening up? Like, what is that?
I mean, I know there's a new spray that's come out that they're putting on some of the produce, even in the organic produce, even at Whole Foods.
Yeah.
And it's a Bill Gates creation that it's a preservative, I guess, but it's an organic preservative.
Right.
Not.
It was weird. I was like, I've had these pears for. I mean, it would be like having a banana that just stays green, and you're like, you should ripen, right? You should. I mean, maybe it was picked too soon.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, it certainly could be a factor.
So interesting. Tell me this: the EWG Environmental Working Group releases a list every year of the Clean 15 and the Dirty Dozen. Are you familiar with that?
I am.
What do you think about that?
Well, I can only speak from my experience, and strawberries, Plant City is the strawberry capital of the world, the winter strawberry capital of the world, and I was the pharmacist for the farms, if you will, and I know we sprayed them every 3 days with a pesticide or a fungicide, out of necessity sometimes, and out of fear a lot of times. It's a fear-based system of what could get us.
Right.
And honestly, as the chemical salesman, I probably used that to my advantage more than I should have. Of, hey, this guy has this, and I didn't learn till much later that that guy has that because he had poor soil, and your soil may not be poor, so you may never have gotten that, but we sprayed anyway. And so I don't want to speak anything. Farmers are hardworking, and they're trying very hard to grow good food, and I know they're not trying to hurt anyone. It never really entered into our thought process that potentially if I spray this pesticide, which is a neurotoxin for this insect, that it could potentially down the line get into the food system and hurt kids or people. That never was a thought process in what we did. And I don't know much about the group that puts that out, but I will say that
so strawberries are on the Dirty Dozen, meaning
usually number 1 or 2.
Meaning you should not eat them conventionally grown because they have been tested to have a lot of toxic material.
Yeah, I actually brought you a quick reference guide that we used to use, for my farmers when we had a problem show up, and this shows all the chemicals that are registered. These are registered and tested chemicals by the EPA that they say that after, and you can see right here, it has a reentry period and a pre-harvest interval. So as long as we followed these rules, we felt that it should be safe.
Okay.
The Food and Drug Administration have said if you use this chemical and you wait 4 days, then when it's consumed by humans, it shouldn't cause a problem.
Okay.
And that could very well be true. And there's certain half-life that product only lasts this long.
Okay.
But what hasn't been tested, and what we did often, is we would mix 3 or 4 or 5 different chemistries together, because time is of the essence, and we're going to be picking every 3 days, so we have to spray. So we may mix a fungicide with an insecticide with a super spreader sticker to be sure that it gets on target. And I don't think any of those combinations have ever been tested of what that would A and B is fine, but A and B make C, and C's never been tested. So I think there needs to be, a lot of things looked at. I know other countries, for instance, I probably shouldn't even mention the name, but a certain fungicide that's used all the time is banned in Canada. It's banned in Europe. So if we want to ship our berries to Canada or Europe, we can't use that specific fungicide. So why is it okay, and is known as a carcinogen in California, but here in Florida it's fine. So I feel like the pharmaceutical industry, it's really a lot of the same companies that control the pharmaceutical world and the farm world. Syngenta, for instance, is now called ChemChina. China as a country bought Syngenta, and so now they own 50% of the world's chemicals, seeds. The other 2 big companies come from Germany, Bayer and BASF. And what was there's been a consolidation in every market that we've ever seen. And when I was back in, say, 8 years ago, there was 18 or 20 different chemical companies. It's really been consolidated down to like 4 or 5. And many times, the same company, for instance, you brought up Roundup, and Roundup is suggested that it causes non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, and the same company that now owns Roundup also owns the cure for it. So maybe causing the problem, but also offering the cure, which doesn't seem right in any way.
Right, which is crazy.
It is crazy. So Dirty Dozen, I would know who your farmer is, and I would ask them, what are you spraying on your food, and then I would just do a little research on some of these pesticides and see what the side effects could possibly be. And if you're dealing with problems in your body, you may find a solution. I found the solution to my health. I had to do an elimination diet, and taking out pesticide food was part of that, and I eliminated dairy, and I eliminated sugar, and then started slowly reintroducing them into my body. But from there, I was able to find out what was reacting with my system. My holistic doctor, or functional medicine doctor, she did a toxin test on me and found that I had like 95 percentile of all testes of organophosphates, which is one of the chemicals that we sprayed on strawberries at the time. But it was in my system, and it was causing major problems for me. And it was getting that out of my liver and kidney and gallbladder, and that is what allowed my body to start healing.
Wow. That's cool.
So,
really cool.
Other things that came up that you wouldn't think of is the dry cleaning substance that they put on your dry cleaning. When you take it in, it's very toxic, and it sits on your skin, which is your biggest organ. That was very high in my body, was causing a lot of problems for me. So it's not necessarily just about food. There's gasoline, and they're talking about your soaps and the makeups that you're putting on your body. Have things that are endocrine disruptors, and your endocrine system is a big controlling system in your health.
Right.
So really need to take a look at the ingredients and see what's going into your body, and you need
on your body, into your body, all of it.
Yeah, I mean, as a kid, like, well, don't drink that; it causes cancer. Everything causes cancer. Well, it's turning out that maybe so, and but there are healthy alternatives, and maybe it's turning to the Amish community, and going back to tallow instead of seed oils.
Yes.
I think that's kind of a big hype right now,
Sure.
but I think that's very important to look at. Granny lived to be 95, and now this is the first generation that our kids are not going to outlive their parents. So we're regenerating backwards. All the new medicines are amazing. We got amazing doctors doing amazing things, but maybe we're just treating symptoms and not just getting to the root cause of the problem, so that you can enjoy the end of your life and be healthy and happy and not sick and in the hospital.
Right, 100%. And that that's a huge reason why we do what we do, is we want to help be that catalyst and that resource for the people that we have been entrusted to lead and take care of. We want to help them to find those resources, and to transform their health so they can live a full and happy life, like not broken, their body's not broken down, but they can live life to the full. So as we're kind of wrapping things up, I want for those of us who are, still with us and you're still listening, you're tracking with us, I don't want you to feel overwhelmed, like, well, what should I even do? Don't feel overwhelmed. But what would you tell? So here's first things first. If you are a member at Restoration, or you live in this local Lakeland area, I want to let you know that we are actually going to be making Joshua's produce available. Okay, we're going to be offering that as an option where you can order produce from his farm and pick it up here at our gym. But if you are not local to Lakeland and you're like, well, shoot, what do I need to do about this? What would you tell someone that say lives in Georgia? How would you say, start here, find this, look for this in your local area? What would you tell them?
Well, if you can't grow it yourself, which I would say start there, order some seeds, get some soil, go to your local extension office. They're there to help you grow food.
Okay.
And there's master gardeners there who understand a lot of what I've talked about. They're going to teach you how to make compost. They're going to teach you how to have rain barrels, teach you how to plant a seed. And it's, the Bible says you plant a good seed in good soil, you will have a 30, 60, and 100-fold return. So I believe that. I mean, kids eat more food it's proven if they plant it themselves, they're excited about it. They want to share with their kids. So I would say start at home and see, even if you live in an apartment, just, get a potting plant if you have to. If you're not in a position to do that, then reach out to your local neighborhood. There's a community garden, I promise you, within a few miles of you. In Tampa, there's a coalition of community gardens. I think there's at least 20, and it's growing all the time. Find a school that believes in this and is growing food, and send your kid to that school. I think that would be a good place to start. But if you can't grow it yourself, if you can't find a community garden, then there are farmers like me, small farmers in every community that are struggling to figure out, how do I get this healthy food to the consumer? I can't take it to the grocery store. They won't even talk to me. I can't take it. So through your church, is the River Church of Tampa Bay, here's local, and Pastor Eric Gagnon with the Land of Delight Farms. They're growing 5 acres of food on the church property, and every Sunday after church you can go and get healthy, nutritious food.
Wow.
They're handing out seeds on Sunday saying, go plant, and plant in healthy soil.
That's
and beyond
cool.
organics they're talking about. And there's a big movement within the Christian community, and I think that's that's biblical in Isaiah. It says, my people are going to eat and be healthy, and your people are going to be sick and perish. And I think this has a lot to do with that. There's going to be 1,000 years regenerative rain. It's funny that it's regenerative, rain. And I think that's the start of it now. So plant a seed, reach out to your community, find a small farmer that you can partner with. And if nothing else, give me a call, and I'll try to connect you to the right people. There's regenerative agriculture is we're like the last to find out about this. When I met Graham Sade out of Australia, they've been doing this for 20 years. Out in the Midwest, they're doing rotational grazing, and we didn't even talk about cattle. But they've been having an understanding and knowledge of this, and I honestly, as the chemical guy helping farmers farm, was blind to most of this that I learned in a quick 4-day short course by Graham Sade. And so, educate yourself, and we can all be a part of the solution of a healthy communities. Right. And it's really not that hard. Most of the stuff you buy, even if you buy it at the store, save the seeds, plant the seeds, and grow them 3 times. And now that seed is more predisposition to this soil, to this environment, and we'll give you a healthy yield. Wow. And every time you plant a seed, the soil is going to get a little healthier.
Wow.
So
that's so cool. That's so awesome. So to bring it back locally here, so for our members at Restoration, we're actually officially going to do a little trial run for the next 6 weeks, and Joshua is going to be offering us what he calls his regeneration boxes, which is fresh, locally grown, organic, all the things that he has talked about, how they grow their food. That's what you're going to get from these boxes. Now, I want to make a plug real quick. In this research that I have been doing lately and just learning all about, just diving deeper into the importance of filling our bodies with enough fiber and enough healthy plants. I want to read this real quick. So the American Gut Project research showed that people with the healthiest microbiomes, meaning the healthiest guts, they eat at least 30 different plant foods per week.
Wow.
Okay, so the variety. So when you get one of Joshua's boxes, it's probably going to have some things in it that you might not have seen or that you might not grow or buy normally at the grocery store, and that's okay and that's good. And I want to encourage you, do some research. Like when I got my box last week, I had some tomatoes and basil, and I'm like, those things go together. I never buy fresh basil at the store, but this is so healthy and nutritious. So what can I make? And you know what? I used your eggs that you gave me from your farm, and I made a quiche with tomato and basil, and I put some feta cheese in it, and it was delicious. Okay, so it forces you to get creative, to get that variety, the variety of your beans and your nuts and seeds, your fruits and vegetables, getting all of that in. And I want to challenge you, like I've been challenging some of my clients recently, like, hey, I want you to keep track this week. Keep track of how many different plants you get in your diet this week, and let's just see, where are you? Are you having 10? Are you having 25? Because that's super, super important. And filling our diets with fiber is also so important. So getting the plants in is key. So with your boxes, you're going to get a variety of fresh picked vegetables and fruits. So good. We're going to be offering that every other Thursday for the next 6 weeks, and then you guys take a break in the summer. Is that correct?
Yeah, we'll be growing some stuff, okra and peas, and there's a few things in Zone 9B that we're in the Florida heat that we can grow. Right. But a lot of the fruits will be finished. Blueberries will be done. Strawberries will be done. Mangoes will be done. But we'll still be growing, and we'll have fresh moringa. Moringa is the miracle tree, and you could literally live off of it. It has more fiber than oats, more protein than yogurt, more potassium than bananas.
Get us some of that.
I'll definitely have you some fresh moringa. And we're gonna certainly grow some cover crops, so that'll be a lot of your peas and beans and hemp and that type of thing. Right. So we'll do our best to continue. But over the next, it'll be 12 weeks, but every other week, so 6 opportunities here at Restoration Fitness and Nutrition to partner with us. And really create, a blueprint of what it looks like in the fall. So hopefully we'll be back in by mid-September, and then we'll go 38 weeks together, and hopefully it'll be the healthiest that this community and this gym has ever been, and it'll just be the start. And I'll have all you guys growing food.
Come on. My husband's already, he's like, can he teach me? And I'm like, yes.
Grow enough for your family, grow enough to share with your neighbor. And then after that, then we have markets all over Tampa Bay. We're partnered with the local hospitals, St. Joe's Hospital, currently in Tampa General Hospital. Tampa General, I got to give them a plug. They started a food RX program, or a food pharmacy of their own, where instead of getting a traditional medicine, you're getting a prescription for eat more broccoli, or eat more dark greens. And so I got to say that they're really working hard. This is the future of healthcare. We're talking about food, but we got to consider that food is medicine. Soil health is the key to our health, and the closer that we can get to that as a community, then the healthier our community will be, and it's just going to grow from there.
That's so good. Tell us your website, how we can find you and get in touch with you.
Yeah, so we're known as the Young Family Pharmacy with a FARM, and our website's youngfamilypharmacy.com. It's a pretty simple shopping website at this moment, called Barn to Door, and you'll go on and you'll pick your pickup location, which right now we'll have 4 with you. We'll have St. Joe's Hospital Thursday, Tampa General Friday, our farm market, which is over in Thonotosassa off of McIntosh Road and Thonotosassa Road on Saturday, and then every other Thursday, Restoration Gym and Fitness. And you'll pick up your pickup location, do your shopping. Currently, there's a 15% off for a first-time buyer code that you can go ahead and jump in on that. And we'll have some special boxes. I think you mentioned that we're going to sponsor something you're doing here at the gym.
Yes. So in the month of April, Young Family Pharmacy is sponsoring our Committed Club. So, we'll talk about what that's going to look like, but if you were the winner of the Committed Club in April, you're going to get some produce from their farm for free. So,
and we do more than just produce. We have local honey, we have sourdough bread, we have fresh oils and vinegars, fresh squeezed juices every week.
Which are so good.
My mom always makes the banana bread, or zucchini bread, or pumpkin bread. So we have something for everybody, and fresh fruits and vegetables. And not all produce is available here local. I'm going to point that out. Like if I need to get apples, there's no Florida apples at the moment.
Right.
But you can be assured when you eat our apples, the flavor is going to be off the charts. And we partner with other farmers that are trying to do what we're doing. And so we try to be as local as possible. And then from there, we really want to support, the farms of America Farms.
Right.
And if I can't get it from there, if I have to have it, we'll stay within the USDA organic guidelines from there. But everything has a season. I will say that too. Like we're not always supposed to have everything all the time. We want it at the freshest, ripest part of the season.
Right.
But when Georgia peaches come in, I'm getting some Georgia peaches in. There's certain areas that are just known for quality produce, and you'll feel that when you shop with us.
Right. That's so good. So your website again is
youngfamilypharmacy.com.
Okay, and we're going to have that in the show notes. We're also going to be building out a little section on our website that's going to have, so if you're familiar with our website, you'll be able to go on there and click over to his and buy, shop and all of that good stuff. So thank you so much for being here with me and sharing your wealth of knowledge with our audience. we're super thankful for you giving your time and your resources that God has given you and sharing those with us. So,
Well, God's healed me from all those things. I just got a little bit into my story, but it's certainly been in my own health journey that has brought me to this place. And everything I've learned has been from mentors taking the time to teach me something they know. So I'm an open book. I'm here to share. If you want to grow food, absolutely reach out to us. We can get you on a right path. And we really appreciate the partnership and the time, and look forward to what God brings from this.
Right. Amen. All right, good deal. Well, thanks for listening today, and we'll see you next time.